I was awaiting extradition in the Albuquerque County Jail for a deal that went sour in Arizona where a DEA agent got shot. I was in the county jail for a couple of months and I was made a trustee. I would go out and talk to the young woman who was a college student manning the front desk. And they brought this old man in. These two detectives brought him in, a drunk Indian, and they kicked him on the floor and started beating on him. The young woman behind the desk, this Caucasian woman, just started laughing at him. And that really upset me. And because the man reminded me of my father, so she turned around to get the records from the filing cabinets. She had all her books stacked up right by the bars there. And I reached through the bars and grabbed the book. I was nearly illiterate. I didn't want to read the book, own the book, or anything. I just wanted one way of hurting her, and this was it. I got back to my cell. I started tearing out the pages to create a small bonfire, and as the fire and the flame grew and the illumination got brighter and brighter, I caught the word dog, and I caught the word water, and I caught the word sheep, and it felt like I had stumbled into a lost treasure, something that you just fall upon as a kid and don't know what it is, but you know it's valuable, and you know it glows, and you know it's got worth, and it's got weight because it can express something that your heart yearns to express and engage in, but something that no one's ever given you. In its furthest dimensions, its furthest reaches, echoed with the sense that I will give you meaning. I will give your chaos order. They turned the water off, so I live without water. They build walls higher, so I live without treetops. They paint the windows black, so I live without sunshine. They lock my cage, so I live without going anywhere. They take each last teardrop I have, and I live without tears. They take my life and they crush it time and time again, so I live without a future. Who understands me when I say that this is beautiful? Who understands me when I say that I have found other freedoms? I've been in jail a lot of times for small stuff like fighting and stealing. I call it the pocket change crime. But I knew this time it was really different. There were drugs, a DEA agent was shot. For the first time, I felt inside that I was terrified, desperate to subvert this fear in me into some practical use I could manage. Maybe that's why I stole that girl's book, I don't know. It wasn't any good to me because I could barely read. I mean, I had a rudimentary grasp of language that I had learned in the orphanage from our catechism class. But until I got my hands on that book, the written word meant nothing. Something shifted in me in that cell with that book, and all of a sudden I was eager to read for the first time in my life. I spent the entire night going through the words on this one page until I figured out it was about a man walking his dog around a pond. And the words exploded with the days of me and my grandpa just being together. This was remarkable because I had despised books up until that moment. Books were nothing in my life. They did not exist. So to have something of this magnitude occur to me left me wide-eyed and sleepless on my cot in my cell that night. Bonafide was in the cell to my right, and he was one of the most feared men in prison. He had a reputation of having killed 3 men on the yard the last time they let him out of his cell. He liked me for some reason and we got along fine. But when I was down there, I mostly kept to myself. It was a lot safer. I just wanted to do my time.
Dear Mr. Baca, my name is Harry Gould. I received your name from a list in my church of inmates without family. If you care to correspond, I would be honored to make your acquaintance.
Harry Gould was a man who lived in Phoenix, who had no legs because they were blown off in a World War II PT boat accident. He resided in Phoenix and he ran a soup kitchen. And he wrote me from Phoenix saying, I am a good Samaritan. Is there anything I can do to help you? It may have taken me 4 or 5 days to understand the letter. I would take a word and try to sound it out, but I was missing a lot of words. See, I could read, but not functionally. I could write, but not functionally. And I had absolutely no comprehension skills at all. So if I went through a sentence and I had a hard time figuring out the first few words, how they were arranged together, by the time I'd gotten to the second or third sentence, I had forgotten completely what the first sentence meant. I had Bonafide write him back for me saying, "Thank you for writing, Harry. Could you please send me a dictionary?"
Thank you for your good letter. As you requested, I have enclosed a dictionary. As you learn to write, do not worry too much about structure, etc. Just write, and your familiarity with language will evolve naturally.
When I finally got my own dictionary, that's when I started to write. I would have a blank piece of paper on my right and a dictionary on my left, and I would sit with them literally from 8 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. Every single day, I was absorbed and consumed and immersed in this thing you call writing. And then going to the dictionary to figure out, well, what other word do I want? So if I put a word down like I drove, and drove wasn't exactly what my emotions were feeling, I went to drive. And there was other words that meant drive, and I'd go to those other words. And there was other words that meant those other words, and I went to those other words, and I went to those other words, and those other words, until I had 70,000 meanings for drive. And this whole world opened up for me, and I could write the word that I wanted that matched my emotions. And when you find that, it's like finding a track in the wilderness. You're not gonna let go of that track, you're gonna keep on tracking it.
Your writing is getting stronger. It is very clear to me that you are developing a style of your own, a range of vision and approaches, and a strong use of language. Continue writing and studying as much as you can, and keep working with the men around you.
At some point in time when I was writing, I began to follow the rhythm, the metabolism of my own body. And if there was joy running through my shoulders, I would write. When my emotion on the line was extinguished, I would drop down with a punctuation to show my emphatic passion for that particular experience that I was writing about. And he said, "My God, these are incredible poems." And I thought, really, these are poems? And before I knew it, I just couldn't stop writing poetry. I would send out poem after poem to him every day, every day, every day. It was my first free voice to be able to write somebody out of prison in society. Essentially, it was creating community. It was creating a family. It was interesting too, because I was creating a family with Harry, and Harry wasn't a drunk, he wasn't a dope fiend, he didn't come in with a knife at night. Harry didn't beat up the people I love. Harry was kind and considerate and understanding. I actually got to talk to somebody that made me feel human. First time at the age of 22. Can you believe that? I felt like a human being.
Dear Cy, I'm sending you 3 poems for possible publication. I don't consider myself a poet yet, but I am studying hard. You put out a beautiful magazine. Maybe if you decide to publish a poem or two of mine, it will cover the expenses for a subscription. Tu amigo, Jimmy Santiago Baca.
I was published in small magazines, but mostly the institutional prison magazine called La Roca. Some of my friends urged me to submit my poems to other magazines outside the walls, and the Sun magazine was one of the first ones.
The spring of 1977 was when you could say he stepped out of his prison cell through his language, through his passion, and that's when it began.